Okay, today we're going to be talking about the meter relay and the Cohere tube used in the Radicon Robot. It's also used in a lot of the other Radicon toys like the Radicon bus and car and boat. And so the first thing I had to do after having cleaned all this up and gave you the demo video showing how the mechanical parts still work is I needed to test out the meter part itself here. And I've taken the front cover off. Normally this would be sitting on here, but I wanted to make it easier for you to see what's going on. Let's see if I can get that closer without knocking all my wires loose. There, get less reflection. It's basically a meter movement, meaning normally you would see a little pointer dial move like this. Instead of a pointer dial, they bring down these two flexible contacts, and these come to the back side. Those are the relays contacts, and then there's two little brushes. They look dark in this picture. In fact, I was hoping they would be carbon, but they're not. So what happens is when the meter movement moves, it pushes this one contact on this side over to that one, and they touch. So it's a meter, but it's closing contacts, so that makes it a meter relay. And it's those contacts that can handle the current of driving the motor here for the stepper, which goes to the 6 different positions every time it's triggered, and the little hammer that comes down to hit the Cohere tube to reset it. Because once the Cohere tube is conducting, that moves the needle on the meter, which closes the contacts. The contacts then feed power to the motor, which then takes one step and whacks the Cohere tube to turn the motor off again and waits for the next command to come along. So what I found what was wrong in the meter here, thank goodness the meter movement part has still worked. It just operates on 1.5 volts, so I just have a single AA battery for that. It draws almost no current at all to move a meter movement. And the movement part still worked, and the contacts were coming together, but the contacts were not conducting any current, so they were corroded. They looked almost black initially, so that's why I was thinking they were carbon. I'm going, well, they got to conduct. Carbon doesn't corrode like that, but they're not. So I had to get in there with super fine 400 and 600 grit paper and clean the end of those contacts to get them working again. So once I got those working, then it would run the motor. So once I had that part going, which I'll demo here in a second, it was then to connect up to the Cohere tube, which basically supplies ground to the meter relay. See, one side of the meter relay gets 1.5 volts, and the other side of the meter relay is looking for a connection to ground. So that's when this tube is conducting, it goes and conducts through ground. Problem is, this tube doesn't have the sensitivity that it should have. You have to be within about 1 to 2 inches of the antenna for this Cohere tube in order for it to start conducting. It releases fine, but it doesn't have the sensitivity it should have. And that's even when using a proper transmitter, proper Radicon transmitter, which I now have one in the house, and I verified the transmitter's operation by using it against my Radicon Robot, which you can see videos of on YouTube, out in the Robothut, and you could stand 5-6 feet away and the robot would respond every time. So I know the transmitter was good. But let's start with some of the basic things here. So basically I'm going to connect the 1.5 volts to that. I'm not going to connect the power up to the motor yet. Let's see if we can see the needle move. I'm getting the transmitter. Here's the transmitter, by the way. And if you don't know what the transmitter is, they needed an oscillator so they could run a step-up transformer to generate super high voltage, which will produce a spark between the spark gap right here, just like the spark plug in the car. But in order to get an oscillator, they just built a buzzer. So when you push the button, what you're doing is activating a buzzer. And if most of you don't know, there'd be, let's say this is an electromagnet and there's a metal plate here. When the magnet turns on, it's going to suck the metal plate down. Well, envision a contact above that metal plate. So when the metal plate is up, spring-loaded, it's completing the circuit. So when you push the button, the magnet turns on. As soon as the magnet pulls that metal plate down, that breaks the circuit open. So then the metal plate goes back up again. As soon as it goes back up, it's conducting and it goes back down, up and down, up and down. And that's how you make a buzzer. So they make a buzzer, and then around the windings of that buzzer, they make the high voltage windings for the spark gap. And let's see if we can see it on camera. I can see it as a purple glow. I don't know if there's too much light in here. So assuming that you could see that, that's the spark gap. And let's see, the meter contacts are still open. So what I'm going to do is I've got the antenna, see it here, connected with this black wire, not that black wire, this one, coming right over here, is going right up to the antenna. So I'm going to get this right up next to that antenna. What you want to watch, can I hold all this crap? I don't know. Try watching those contacts and see if they move together. There, did you see it? They went together and they're still together. I'm going to set the transmitter down, like so, and see how they're still together. Now watch what happens when I tap the tube. They released. So that opened the circuit. So the Cohere tube here works as long as you're about that far away from the antenna. And like I say, I've tested this transmitter with some of my other Radicon toys, and I could be 5-6 feet away and they would pick them up. So there is something about this tube which is not sensitive the way it should be. Now I have replaced the wires because the original ones were stiff and not in good condition, and these brass or copper, whichever the case may be, outside pieces, they're not actually part of the Cohere detector tube. They are just little clips that clip onto the ends. The Cohere detector tube looks a lot like just a regular fuse, glass fuse. So I did take those parts off, took the tube out, and again cleaned every bit of the contacts on that with 400 grit paper, put it all back together just to make sure that I was making good electrical connections everywhere, good ground, giving it the benefit of the doubt, and it didn't seem to help. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this antenna, and I'm going to move it over to what you see here is the front end of a bus, and there's where the antenna is, right there. And here's the Cohere tube in a Radicon bus. And let's see, do I need to move anything else? I think I already have ground connected. So now let's kind of watch these contacts down here. Get the reflections right so we can see. I may not have everything connected, or I may have moved everything, because I did just a second ago and everything was fine. Let's see, did I move the right wire? Got the antenna to the antenna. I've got ground connected to ground. Oh, no, I haven't moved everything. See this white wire? This just got to move over to the new Cohere tube. It's not enough to move the antenna. I need to bring it into the circuit. Let's swivel the camera this way so you can see. I've got the antenna sitting vertically. They always want the antenna vertical. There you can see a lot of the bus guts there. And we got to keep it so we can see the meter. So now we've got the meter movement down here. Let's bring that back up again, hopefully so we can get the reflections minimized. And there, you saw it moved, and I don't have the transmitter anywhere near it. And I'm going to tap the Cohere, and it released. So let's tie this servo motor in with this. The only problem with that is this is the servo motor that I've just tied in. It's the one that's going to run, but it's not the one that's going to whack the tube. So if all it's going to do is complete a circuit, and it's going to keep running until I reach over there and whack it. So let's do this. Let's move this back to here and move the antenna back to here. So now this whole thing is self-contained, and I'm just going to move the transmitter real close to the antenna so you can see what the normal operation would be like, and hopefully the meter is still visible. So you can see how when I buzz the transmitter, that little needle that I'm holding in my hand there went together, the relay contacts, which made the motor run, and then that all advanced and then shut off. So what I'm going to have to do in this case is swap out this Cohere tube for that Cohere tube, and then this base and this meter should function okay. Now I'll glue this cap back on like about so, and then we should have that part of our Radicon robot working right. The bus is, I'll put this tube into the bus so it at least has one, but the bus was basically here to donate parts as needed for the robot. The robots are worth a whole lot more than the buses or the cars or the boats or any of those things. But that's what I wanted to show you today, was double checking the parts, the actual receiver parts and sequencer parts for the Radicon robot.